Well, let's continue on that energy theme for a second. Simon Lomax works at CompleteColorado.com as an energy reporter. Love following your work.
Thanks, John.
It's incredible. It's award-winning. It's superb. So
You're too kind.
Yeah, the clean power plan we just heard about is being pushed. Our governor is going to be pushing it, even though the Supreme Court says, no, you don't have to do this. The governor is going to push forward. Our electric rates are going to go skyrocketing. It's going to be wonderful. You've done some work as to who's behind this push, and not just this push, but a lot of the anti-fracking work that's going on in Colorado. And I'm surprised there's money behind it.
Right.
What have you learned?
Right. Well, you may have heard during the last election cycle in 2014 of a guy called Tom Steyer. He's a big-time political activist and donor out of San Francisco, and he's a very high net worth individual. He's a
when you say high net worth individual,
right?
What are we talking?
His net worth is estimated about $1.6 billion.
1.6 billion.
Right, and he made his money in hedge funds. So he's a self-made man, successful investor, professional investor, and he's retired or semi-retired now. And for the last 5 or 6 years, he's been getting very politically active on environmental issues. He started out in California, working in sort of the state political scene there, but in the 2014 election cycle, he was the biggest single political donor in federal election races, be they U.S. Senate or anything else.
Wait, so last time, 2 years ago, this guy was the largest donor to candidates.
Right, right.
How many were Republicans? How many were Democrats?
I think Open Secrets has a league table, if you like, of the donors, so you can go in there and take a look. And I haven't counted them up exactly, but it looks roughly even. But to put his personal political investment, if you like, in perspective, Open Secrets says he put $74 million into the 2014 election cycle. That's 2.5 times more than Mike Bloomberg, the billionaire.
2.5 times more than Michael Bloomberg, who, of course, was involved here in Colorado with all the anti-gun laws a couple years back, who bankrolls so much in politics.
And more than that, according to Open Secrets data, Tom Steyer personally put 9 times more money into federal election races than the Koch brothers. So he is the biggest single donor. He was the biggest single donor in the 2014 election cycle.
I love there's this double standard. You know, when the left had George Soros, everybody seemed quiet on the left about that, and then it continued. Here in Colorado, we had the Gang of Four, including Pat Stryker, who isn't worth 1.6 million or billion now. She's worth, I think, $2.3 billion. Rutt Bridges, Jared Polis, Tim Gill, and they bought the infrastructure that has made Colorado now this liberal bastion that it is. And beyond that, we now have Tom Steyer, who's putting in double what Michael Bloomberg does, and those were very liberal contributions. But all I ever hear about are those evil Koch brothers. I've been told that my organization, the Independence Institute, is funneled, has their money. And if so, Charles, David, please send me the check. It hasn't come yet. Anyway, why is there this double standard that these rich liberal billionaires, but the Koch brothers, that's a problem when Tom Steyer is outspending them?
Well, honestly, that's why I've spent as much time as I have trying to kind of work out what Tom Steyer is doing in Colorado. Not because I have anything against Tom Steyer for being a rich guy. I wish him very well. I'm sure that he earned his money. I'm just interested in making sure that that people pay as much attention to Tom Steyer as they do anyone else who's contributing to the 2016 election cycle. Of that $74 million that Tom Steyer spent nationally or contributed nationally in 2014, about 8.5 million showed up trying to save Mark Udall and save his Senate seat.
He spent $8.5 million on Udall.
Yeah, 8.5 in outside spending in that Colorado Senate race. And here's the thing. After the 2014 election cycle, Tom Steyer didn't pick up and go home in terms of his political operation. What we're learning now is that it really stayed in place. It never went anywhere. And if anything, 2014 was kind of a dry run for 2016.
When you say it didn't go anywhere, what is it?
Well,
because if he spent 1 point whatever on Udall, well, in 2015, Udall's not running. It's not like he can spend that money on a candidate. I guess he could give it to Bennett, Michael Bennett, but I don't. When you say it, what is he spending it on, and what have you found?
It's a great question. So, what Tom Steyer spent 2015 doing in Colorado, that we know of, is he spent a good amount of time and effort forging very close ties with a group called Conservation Colorado, which is really the leading environmental group. It's kind of the environmental establishment in Colorado. They're a regular fixture up at the Capitol whenever there's any legislation being debated that might touch on issues they care about. They're always, almost always involved whenever there's any kind of regulatory proceeding at the agency level, especially if it is tightening regulation on the state's energy sector. It's a big priority for them. So
when you say that he's got a relationship with them, what kind of relationship?
Well, he was honored by Conservation Colorado at a big gala in downtown Denver over the summer of last year, where he received all kinds of plaudits and praise, and people who were part of the environmental establishment in Colorado were falling over themselves to say what a great job he had done trying to get environmental champions elected to national level office and to state level office. The other thing that Tom Steyer was doing during this period was spending about $350,000 in Colorado on research and polling. Now,
how much?
$350,000 in research.
Now, I've
and
done
polling.
a fair amount of polling, and I've paid for a fair amount of polling. I've never paid $350,000 for polling. How do you know he's paid that much for it? And let us speculate. Pray tell, what for?
So the spending on the research and polling was disclosed through the Federal Election Commission, because it was done through a political action committee he set up called Next Gen Climate Action. When I saw that he had put all this polling in a state of 5 million people, $350,000 is a lot of research and polling for a state of 5 million people, it told me that something was going on. At around that same time, two groups that are allied with Tom Steyer closely, Conservation Colorado and a national group called America Votes, started paying for direct mail in what is expected to be a very closely contested state Senate race this year.
State Senate. We're not talking about Michael Bennett.
No.
What are we talking about?
We're talking about the Colorado State Legislature. We're talking about targeting State Senator Laura Woods, who is, well, the Republicans control the state Senate, as you know, by a single vote. So if you can flip one seat, then if from the Democratic perspective you have a Democratic Senate, a Democratic House, and a Democrat in the governor's mansion, and you've restored one-party rule in Colorado, which was the whole idea of the blueprint, right?
So basically, Laura Wood is in a very difficult district for Republicans or Democrats. It's a pretty tight seat. So you're telling me that the guy who has spent more money than anybody in the last election is now doing polling and targeting one Colorado Senate seat. So our Colorado State Senate, which swings politics for everything in Colorado because there's only a one-vote majority for Republicans, is being not taken care of by Coloradans. I mean, it's one thing when you're taking on U.S. Senate seats and presidential races, but a billionaire from California is now targeting the Colorado State Senate in one seat.
That we know of. I would add that Tom Steyer has the resources, and he certainly has the ambition to be targeting many races at once. So it is entirely possible that Tom Steyer is going to play at the presidential level in Colorado, at the U.S. Senate level in Colorado, because Michael Bennett's up for re-election, and also in state legislative races, and maybe not just one, maybe more. It's important to know that Tom Steyer has form on this issue.
What do you mean form?
In the last election cycle, he was very active in Washington State and Oregon, also trying to get candidates that he favors elected to the state legislature in order to strengthen the hand of Democratic governors that he was supportive of. And the hope being, I think, that they would pass the kind of environmental policies that he supports, that he would prefer, and then use the example that was set at the state level to try to make things happen on energy and climate the way he would like in Washington, D.C.
Talk to me a little bit about fracking, about what we can expect. All right, so you've done some reporting on this, and it really is cotton, that's a great word. Me talk good. All right, so it's caught a lot of attention to see that the tentacles of Steyer's coming into Colorado and playing large. For the Colorado Senate seat, the Colorado State Senate, anything else?
Well, we're trying to work out, and when I say we, I mean just anyone who's interested in Colorado politics and anyone who has a stake in who gets elected and who gets to make decisions. What I'm trying to work out is what is Tom Steyer going to do about these ballot measures that have been proposed by a number of fringe national environmental groups, all of which are targeted at fracking, but really what they're about is essentially shutting down the state's energy sector, which is one of the state's most important economic engines and job creators. So last election cycle in 2014, Tom Steyer sent representatives to Colorado to talk to Congressman Polis, who was, as we know, going to be the money behind some measures in 14 that got pulled. And what we're trying to work out now is, will he be involved in 16?
So in other words, the money is coming in, and it's coming after you. Well, Simon, thank you. Thank you. We'll see you next week. Tell a friend about the Independence Institute.